The night before my daughter Emma was supposed to start school, my mother-in-law Linda Carter showed up at our home with an overly sweet smile, acting like the perfect grandmother. I had personally prepared a full dinner to welcome her, thinking maybe this time she had come to truly care about Emma. But in the middle of dinner, just as I was wiping Emma's mouth clean with a napkin, Linda set her chopsticks down with a grandmotherly grin and said, "Claire, honey, I haven't seen my precious granddaughter in so long. Since she's just a girl, school can wait, can it? Why don't you help her pack up and let her come stay with Grandma for a while in the countryside?" I clenched my jaw, but kept calm. "Mom, Emma's education isn't something we can delay. She needs to go to school on time. This is her right." I thought I had said it gently enough, but Linda immediately slammed her chopsticks down and snapped, "That school district spot already belongs to my grandson Toby. Emma was never going to use it anyway. And besides, you're part of the Carter family now. You do what your elders say." Her voice was full of contempt, not even trying to hide the bias. My smile froze. I stood up and picked up my phone, dialing the police. "Hello, officer? Someone seems to have fraudulently registered my school district condo to a child who doesn't live here. I want to file for immediate removal," but before I could finish, Linda lunged across the table and slapped the phone out of my hand. Her face twisted into a scowl as she hissed, "Claire, are you serious right now? Toby's the only grandson in our family. You want to erase his registration? Your husband already agreed to this. Around here, if a man agrees, a daughter-in-law shouldn't be running her mouth." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was 2020-something, and she still thought women should stay quiet and give up education for boys. I gently pulled Emma close, calming her shaking little shoulders, and turned to look at my husband Daniel Carter who, up until now, had been quietly stuffing his face and pretending he didn't exist. "This condo was fully paid off before we got married. How could you let your nephew take Emma's school spot without even telling me?" Daniel gave me an awkward chuckle, picked up a few pieces of chicken, and placed them in my bowl like that would fix anything. "Claire, my brother Jason doesn't have a condo in the school district, and if Toby doesn't get our spot, he'll have to go to some rural school. My mom raised me, and Jason's never asked me for much. Can't we just lend it to Toby this time?" I nearly laughed out loud. "Lend? Emma is older than Toby by a full year. You want me to give up my own daughter's future for your nephew?" He didn't answer. Linda suddenly tried to grab my hand again, her tone sugary but her eyes glinting with calculation. "Claire, honey, since you married into the Carter family, have I ever treated you badly? Didn't we give you $3,000 in dowry money when you and Daniel got married? Just consider that the price of the school spot." I stiffened, pulled my hand away, and gave her a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "You must have forgotten, Mom. You borrowed $30,000 from me right after Daniel, and I got our marriage certificate, said it was to help Jason get married. If we're going to start putting a price tag on things, maybe we should settle the $27,000 you still owe me." Her smile cracked. Then she exploded, pointing a trembling finger at my face like she was trying to stab me with it. "Claire Bennett, you ungrateful brat. You think you can talk to me like that? You're nothing but a worthless orphan. Without the Carter family, you'd be nothing but bones in the gutter." Even Daniel couldn't hide his embarrassment at that.
"Mom,
What are you even saying? Claire is my wife." For a brief second, I felt a flicker of hope until Daniel turned to me with that familiar sigh and said, "Honey, don't blow this out of proportion. It's just a school spot. Why let it tear the family apart? Let's just give it to Toby." My head snapped toward him, stunned. He looked away. Emma, who had been sitting silently the whole time, suddenly burst into tears. "Grandma, I'll give my school spot to my cousin. Please stop yelling at my mom. Please don't make her leave." Her tiny, shaking body tried to shield mine. I looked into her teary eyes, and something inside me cracked wide open. I pulled her into my arms, held her tightly, and whispered against her hair, "Don't worry, baby. No one's taking your school spot. And no one's sending me away." The room fell dead silent. Linda burst out laughing like I had told the world's funniest joke. "Still pretending you've got a say in this house? All right, Claire. If you won't listen, we'll show you who really runs this family." That was the first time in 8 years the Carter family had truly revealed their fangs. My chest ached like it had been cracked open, but I held my daughter tighter and stood my ground. I was about to reveal the legal ownership of the condo when the front door opened. In walked Jason, Carter Daniel's younger brother, with a smug look, and his son Toby, who waddled in behind him, fat and clueless. Jason flopped onto my sofa like he owned the place. "Come on, Claire. Don't be so stingy. We're family, right? When Toby grows up and gets rich, he'll take care of you, and Emma too. Everyone wins." I clenched my jaw so tight I thought my teeth would crack. Toby, who was only 8, sat there stuffing chips into his mouth while Jason leaned in like he had a brilliant idea. "Better yet, Claire. Since you're being so generous, why not just sign the condo over to me entirely? I mean, what if you do go and remove Toby from the registration? That'd be messy. Better to do it clean." That's when it hit me. They weren't just stealing Emma's spot. They were here to take everything. I felt Emma's small hand slip away from mine, then I heard her scream. "You're a bad man. Let go of my mommy. That's her house, not yours." And then Jason, the grown man that he is, kicked her.
Kicked my daughter.
Emma flew backward and hit the ground crying. That sound, her cry, ignited something primal in me. I tore away from Jason's grip and pushed him off with all my strength. "Get out of my house.
Now."
I picked up Emma, checking her for bruises, trembling with rage. "If you ever lay a finger on her again, I swear I'll make you all pay." Linda froze, startled. Then she fell to the ground and began to wail like a soap opera villain. "Help! Someone help! This woman wants to kill me. She's making my grandson sick and faking her daughter's injuries to slander me. Daniel, wake up and see what kind of woman you married." The commotion brought neighbors to the door. They whispered, gawked, judged. I thought Claire was a sweet daughter-in-law, but look at her now hurting her in-laws. Wait a second, look at that kid on the floor. Maybe the Carter family's the one being abusive. School district condo? No way she bought that herself. Must have taken it from her husband's family. Some looked at me with pity, others with disgust. Emma crawled back to me, kneeling and sobbing. "Grandma, I don't want the school spot anymore. Just please don't let Uncle hurt Mommy. Please let her go." I pulled her into my arms and cried with her. This condo was mine, fully paid before marriage. They had no right to take it, no right to hurt my child. Enough. Daniel finally stepped out of the kitchen, yelling, "Jason, who told you to lay a hand on my wife and kid?" For once, he stood on our side. I felt something like hope again. But then everything went black. I had passed out. When I woke up, I was lying on a hospital bed, my head throbbing and my body aching like I had been hit by a truck. The fluorescent lights buzzed softly above me, and for a moment, I thought I was dreaming until I turned my head and saw Daniel Carter sitting stiffly by the window, his face a storm of hesitation. My voice came out hoarse as I asked, "Daniel, did they take the house? Does Emma still have her school spot?"
He didn't look at me.
Didn't say a word. Just tightened his jaw and stared at the floor like it held the answers to all of life's problems. My heart sank into a bottomless pit. I studied his profile, that familiar, soft-featured face that once whispered promises of forever, of love, of protection. 8 years ago, I fell for those eyes, that voice, the way he always said he'd stand beside me no matter what. But now, that same man couldn't even look me in the eye while our daughter's future was being stolen. I struggled to sit up, but before I could push myself upright, the door burst open and Emma came running into the room, tears streaming down her face. She threw herself into my arms, sobbing so hard she could barely speak. "Mommy, I was so scared. I thought you wouldn't wake up. While you were sleeping, Grandma and Uncle Jason took everything. They said we're not allowed to come home anymore. I tried to stop them, but I'm too little."
"I'm sorry, Mommy."
"I'm sorry I couldn't protect your things." My heart shattered as I hugged her close, stroking her hair and whispering comfort into her ear, though I could barely speak myself. I looked up at Daniel, fury burning behind my eyes. "Daniel Carter, your daughter was begging strangers not to hurt her mother, and you still stood there doing nothing. Are you even a man? Even if you don't love me anymore, Emma is still your blood. She's your daughter. How can you just sit back and watch her get hurt?" That seemed to hit something inside him, because his cheeks flushed with shame, but instead of answering, he snapped back at me. "Claire Bennett, I should be the one asking questions here. How did an orphan like you even get a condo in a top school district? You say I've failed you and Emma, but maybe you've been hiding things too. Maybe you're not as innocent as you look. I was stunned, like someone had sucker punched me in the gut. My throat burned. Tears stung my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Are you serious right now? I said, voice trembling. You're accusing me? The condo is mine. It's clean. Paid in full. Unlike your family, I didn't need to suck the life out of anyone to get it. Daniel's eyes darkened. Without another word, he slapped me.
Hard.
My head jerked sideways. The sharp crack echoed in the hospital room. I felt Emma flinch in my arms. My face stung, but my heart hurt even worse. That's my mother and brother you're talking about, he growled. You better show some respect. Stay here. Think about what you've done. Don't come home until you're ready to apologize. With that, he stormed out. And with that slap, whatever lingering love I had for Daniel Carter shattered, like glass hitting concrete. I wiped my tears, kissed Emma's forehead, and whispered, Don't worry, baby. Mommy's not crying because she's scared. Mommy's just angry. And when I'm angry, I don't lose, I fight. That night, while Emma slept curled up beside me, I stared at the ceiling with eyes wide open. I knew what I had to do. I couldn't count on anyone to save us. If I wanted to protect Emma, I had to become the kind of woman people feared to mess with. By morning, I called a cab and took Emma back to the condo. The moment we stepped in, it was like stepping into a stranger's house. Empty snack bags everywhere. Dirty dishes in the sink. The cozy home I had built over the years had been turned into a dump by Toby and his slob of a father. Linda was running her hands along the kitchen counters, humming like she already owned the place. Perfect. Let them get comfortable. The higher they climbed, the harder they'd fall. Daniel looked startled when I walked in. Claire, about last night, I cut him off. Don't. I'm not here to argue. I'm just grabbing my things. Linda's eyes narrowed. You're leaving just like that? That's surprisingly obedient of you. Jason smirked and chimed in. Hey, looks like you finally came to your senses. Good. I was worried we'd have to call the cops on you. Once Toby grows up, he'll make this place proud. And hey, Emma will still have family to lean on, right? His arrogance made my skin crawl. I forced a smile. Don't worry. I'll be out of your way soon. I just need to grab something from the back room. I walked straight to the storage room where I kept my parents' memorial tablets, the ones I'd hidden, because the Carters always said they brought bad energy. I placed them carefully in my bag, along with the faded military medals they had left behind. My parents had died serving this country, and this condo had been granted to me as their surviving daughter. It was never Daniel's. Never Toby's. It was never up for negotiation. When I walked out, Linda was waiting, full of fake warmth. You know, Claire, we've already changed the name on the lease. It's officially Toby's now. Don't get any ideas about coming back for it later. This will be his wedding gift. Let's keep things peaceful, okay? I said nothing. Just walked toward the door. But Jason, always the pest, bumped into me accidentally, and my bag fell to the floor. The contents spilled everywhere. Memorial tablets clattered and split into broken shards. Linda rushed forward, ripping the zipper open before I could react. What's this? More junk. She kicked one of the medals with her foot. Oh, old garbage. You still carrying this deadweight around? I dropped to my knees and frantically tried to gather the pieces, tears falling onto the wood as I tried to reassemble what was left of my parents. But nothing fit anymore. The tablets were destroyed. Jason gave a half-hearted chuckle.
Oops. Sorry.
Guess I tripped. Linda shrugged. Well, maybe that's karma. You shouldn't bring that bad luck into our house. Your house, I whispered. This was never your house. But no one listened. Daniel turned his face away, pretending he didn't see. I scooped up the shattered pieces and the dented metals, hugged them to my chest, and walked out the door. Jason and Linda slammed it behind me. I was left standing in the hallway, wearing nothing but a thin hospital gown, shivering in the cold. Behind that door, I could hear them laughing. Can you believe how pathetic she looked crawling around on the floor? Jason sneered. Like a damn dog. Told you, Linda added. Give it 3 days. she'll come crawling back, begging to be let in. Where else can an orphan go? Their voices faded as I walked down the stairs, every step heavier than the last. I didn't stop. I didn't cry. I didn't even look back. I just kept walking through the night, past streetlights and strangers and pitying glances until I reached the gates of the U.S. Army Veterans Compound. 2 uniformed guards watched me carefully as I knelt on the pavement and raised the broken tablets and medals above my head. "My name is Claire Bennett," I said, voice shaking. "My parents gave their lives for this country. They were heroes. I was told that if I ever needed help, I could come here. I'm asking now. Please, help me protect what's left of my family." The guards froze. Then one of them stepped forward, eyes wide at the sight of the medals. The other ran inside, barking orders into a walkie-talkie. I stayed kneeling. I wasn't leaving until someone gave me justice. If the Carter family wanted war, then war is what they were going to get. The moment one of the guards recognized the faded military medals in my hands, his entire expression changed from suspicion to alarm, like he knew these weren't ordinary decorations and that the person kneeling in front of him wasn't just some desperate woman in a hospital gown. He immediately reached out to help me up while the other guard disappeared into the compound, radioing frantically as he ran. I was still gripping the shattered pieces of my parents' memorial tablets like they were the only things tethering me to sanity. Within minutes, the heavy gates creaked open and a rush of footsteps echoed down the pathway. That's when I saw him, General Richard Morgan, the retired commander who had served alongside my father and once sworn that if I ever needed help, I should come find him. His silver hair was swept back, his military coat still crisp and commanding even in retirement, but the second his eyes landed on me, all that steel melted into raw emotion. "Claire," he whispered like he was seeing a ghost. "Is that really you? Claire Bennett?" I nodded, tears blurring my vision, and he rushed to me, his voice breaking. "You're Robert and Susan's daughter. My God, you look just like them." I couldn't hold it in anymore. I dropped to my knees again and sobbed, holding up the medals and broken wood pieces like a broken offering. "Uncle Richard, they took everything. They destroyed Mom and Dad's tablets. They took Emma's school spot. They kicked us out of our home. They said I was just a useless orphan, that no one would care." My words choked off into uncontrollable sobs. General Morgan's eyes hardened with every word. He bent down, gently lifting me to my feet, and turned his guards with a growl in his voice that sent chills down my spine. "Get this child a blanket and hot drink now. And prepare my car. We're paying a visit to the Carter family tonight." As I was led inside, wrapped in warmth for the first time in days, I saw more than just concern in the old man's eyes. I saw fury, righteous and protective, and I knew that for the first time in this nightmare, I wasn't alone. That evening, I sat in his office while he listened to every detail of what had happened, from Linda and Jason's lies to Daniel's betrayal, from Emma being kicked to my condo being overtaken. He didn't interrupt once, only nodded with increasing outrage. When I told him about Emma crying on the floor and Jason's boot hitting her side, he slammed his fist against the desk, his voice a thunderclap. "They think they can bully the daughter of a war hero. They want to steal what your parents died for? Not on my watch." I had never seen a man in his 70s look so full of wrath. "Robert Bennett died saving my life," he said through clenched teeth. "And I vowed I would repay him. Claire, you are under my protection now." That was the first moment in what felt like forever that I could actually breathe. No pretense. No fear. Just a promise that justice was finally coming. The next morning, we drove straight to what was once my home but had now been turned into Linda Carter's personal pigsty. When we arrived, they weren't expecting us. Jason had his feet on my coffee table, eating chips like a slob, while Linda was flipping through a gossip magazine and humming to herself. The moment she saw General Morgan step inside flanked by military guards, she froze.
"Who?
"Who are you?" she stammered, standing so fast the magazine hit the floor. Jason sat up, confused, mouth still full of food. "What the hell is going on?" Before anyone could speak, General Morgan's voice boomed through the condo. "Linda Carter. Jason Carter. This home is the legally registered property of Claire Bennett. Any attempt to seize or transfer ownership without her consent is fraudulent. And kicking her and her daughter out of their own home? Assaulting a child? You're lucky we're not already pressing criminal charges. Linda's face turned ghost white.
You.
You can't scare us. She's my daughter-in-law. This is family business. Family? Morgan spat. You call yourself family after what you did? You destroyed a soldier's memorial tablets. You struck a child. You manipulated your son into enabling your theft. You disgust me. Jason jumped up. Wait a minute. You think you can just barge in here with a costume and threaten us? What kind of joke is this? General Morgan pulled out a badge. Does this look like a joke? And don't call it a costume. This uniform outranks your entire existence. Daniel suddenly called me on my phone just then. I hit speaker. Claire, come on. Don't be mad. Mom said since the condo's in Toby's name now, it didn't make sense to keep your little prayer corner in the back room, so we cleared it out. You should come home and clean up, maybe cook a meal. Let's just move past this, all right? I stared at the phone in disbelief as Morgan's face darkened to a new level of rage. Then I heard Linda's voice yelling in the background. She's just mad. She couldn't get her way. We showed her who really runs this house. No one cares that she's some little orphan. Jason added, seriously, she should be grateful we didn't throw her stuff in the trash. She thinks she's better than us just 'cause she had some loser soldier parents. Morgan grabbed the phone out of my hand and barked into the speaker. Say that again, punk. I dare you. The line went dead. They had hung up. Linda and Jason looked between each other nervously, like maybe for the first time they were realizing this wasn't some bluff. You think she hired some actor to play tough guy? Jason whispered. No way, this is real. It's real, I said quietly, stepping forward, Emma clinging to my leg. And you're going to pay for everything you've done. Morgan snapped his fingers, and a uniformed guard stepped forward. Bring the legal documents. Seize the property. Notify the school board to restore Emma Bennett's enrollment. And contact the police. Let's get these squatters out of here. Linda tried to wail and throw herself on the floor again, but this time no one cared. Jason tried to bolt, only to get tackled by 2 guards. Daniel wasn't even there, too cowardly to face the consequences. In less than 20 minutes, they were all out on the curb, their things scattered in garbage bags. Linda's hair was a mess, Jason's face bruised from resisting. They cursed me with every breath, still refusing to believe what had just happened. This is fake. Linda shrieked. All of this is fake. She hired them. I'll sue you. I'll ruin you. Jason, nursing a limp, pointed at me. You evil bitch. You'll regret this. You'll regret ever messing with the Carters. I looked down at Emma and smiled. You hear that, baby? That's what cowards sound like when they lose. And for the first time in weeks, my daughter smiled back at me. We were home, and I was just getting started. After the Carter family was dragged out and dumped on the sidewalk like the trash they were, General Morgan turned to me with a stern yet gentle expression and said, Claire, I can have you and Emma stay at the compound if you want. You'll be safe there. We'll get the place cleaned up and locked down. But I shook my head, smiling through the exhaustion weighing down my bones. Thank you, Uncle Richard, but I need to handle this myself. I've hidden behind men too long. I want to stand up this time for Emma, for myself, for my parents.
He didn't argue.
Just nodded with pride in his eyes. That night, I tucked Emma into her own bed for the first time in weeks, kissed her forehead, and promised that from now on, no one was going to take anything from us again. But the next morning, when I came downstairs, I saw something that made my blood boil. The damage left behind by the Carters was worse than I thought. Furniture scratched, walls smudged, trash still everywhere. But what really shattered me was the altar I had set up for my parents in the back room, completely smashed to pieces. The wooden table was broken in half, the candles scattered and stomped on, and the new photo I'd printed of my mom and dad had been torn right down the middle. I knelt there silently, fingertips grazing the remnants like I could piece them back together if I just stared long enough. But grief doesn't reverse time, and hate doesn't fix damage. Justice does. That afternoon, I took Emma's hand, and we made our way to the veterans compound, where Uncle Richard had promised to help restore Emma's rightful school registration. When we arrived, I found myself surrounded by people I hadn't seen in over a decade, veterans from my parents' unit, now older, slower, but still sharp-eyed and loyal. Word had spread. They had heard about the Carters and what they did to me and Emma, and one by one they showed up, some with canes, others in wheelchairs, all carrying grocery bags, tools, or even just warm meals. I tried to wave them off, but they wouldn't hear of it. "You're Robert and Susan's daughter," one of them said firmly. "Helping you is helping them." I cried again that day, but for the first time, the tears didn't feel hopeless, they felt healing. That night, I sat beside Emma as she fell asleep, then pulled out the legal paperwork General Morgan had helped me draft. It was time to take back everything they'd tried to steal. Jason Carter wasn't just a parasite, was also a liar, and I had proof. Years ago, he had bragged about his son Toby like he was a Carter heir, but the truth was, Toby wasn't even biologically his. I had the paternity test in my hands, thanks to a private investigator who owed Morgan a favor. And as for Linda, her name was on a financial agreement I still kept locked away, a $30,000 personal loan she took from me after my wedding, claiming it was for family emergencies. That loan was about to bite her back hard. The next morning, I filed the paperwork to reclaim my condo's deed from the illegal name change. I also walked into the school board's office, presented the official military housing certificate and registration, and had Emma's enrollment restored with one signature. But I wasn't done. Not even close. I returned to my condo to find Daniel Carter standing outside the door, looking tired and desperate. He had the nerve to smile like nothing had happened.
"Claire, can we talk?"
I didn't respond, just unlocked the door and walked in, leaving it open out of sheer politeness. He followed behind me like a scolded puppy, watching as I set down my bag and calmly poured myself a glass of water. "Look, I know things got out of hand."
"My mom."
She crossed a line. Jason too. But I never meant for any of this to happen. I didn't even look at him. "You slapped me in a hospital bed and told me to stay there and think about what I'd done. You didn't just mean it, you believed it." He flinched, stepping forward. "Claire, please. I've been thinking about everything. You were right. I should have protected you, and Emma. I should have stood up to them. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but if you just give me one more chance." "No." I cut in, finally turning to face him. "You had your chance. You had hundreds of chances. When your mom insulted me, I stayed quiet. When she borrowed money and never returned it, I stayed patient. When your brother hit our daughter, I stayed strong. But when you raised your hand to me, you lost the last of me." Daniel's face twisted. "I didn't mean to hit you. It was just one time." "One time too many," I replied. "And now it's over." He opened his mouth again, but before he could speak, a voice came from behind me, Emma, standing at the bottom of the stairs, her eyes wide and scared.
"Daddy."
"Are you taking Mommy away again?" That was it. I stepped in front of her protectively.
"No, sweetheart."
"He's just leaving." Daniel looked heartbroken, but I didn't care. He had made his choices.
He would live with them.
Later that evening, while Emma and I were having dinner, I got a call from a friend who worked at a local legal aid office. She'd just been contacted by a Carter family acquaintance asking if I was mentally unstable and dangerous to Emma. They were building a case, trying to flip the script, smearing me before I could bring charges. Classic Carter move. Only this time, I had something they didn't: evidence. Every threat, every assault, every destroyed item, every school form. Even Daniel's hospital slap got on security camera. I had it all. So I smiled, thanked my friend for the heads up, and filed a motion first thing the next morning for full custody of Emma. That same afternoon, Daniel sent me a message asking to talk again, this time offering to sign over all his assets to Emma, just to prove he still cared. I agreed to meet him not because I wanted closure, but because I knew the kind of man he was. Predictable. Manipulative.
Desperate.
We met in a quiet restaurant on the edge of town. He looked thinner, more tired, like guilt had finally caught up to him. I let him sign the property papers first. Let him transfer the last bit of Carter wealth to our daughter. And then, as he put the pen down, he looked at me with that old smile, the one he used back when I was still naive enough to think love could change a man.
"Claire."
"I still love you," he said quietly. "I've made mistakes, but we can start over. Just you, me, and Emma. I'll cut off my family. We'll move away. We'll be happy again." I stared at him for a long moment, then asked calmly, "Is this really about me? Or Is it about the house? The child support? The guilt? No, he said without hesitation. It's about you. You're the only woman I've ever loved. I tilted my head, half smiling. You only love me when I'm useful. I stood up, ready to leave, but then he suddenly climbed onto the windowsill of our fourth-floor booth and shouted, "If you walk out that door, I'll jump. I swear to God, I'll do it." He looked down dramatically at the sidewalk below, never mind the thick bushes that would break his fall. This was nothing more than a stunt. But the old Claire might have panicked. The old Claire might have cried. This Claire? She reached into her purse, pulled out a sleek black recording pen, pressed play, and said, "Then go ahead. But just so you know, I recorded everything including your threats. If anything happens to you, I have proof it wasn't my fault. I'm not taking the fall for your manipulative games anymore." His expression broke.
His balance faltered.
And his desperation turned to hatred. "You bitch. You'll regret this. You'll never be happy. I'll haunt you. I'll make sure you suffer." But I was already walking out the door, not even bothering to look back. As I stepped out into the cool night, a soft breeze blew through my hair, and I finally exhaled. It was over. The Carter curse was ending. But little did I know, fate still had one final surprise for the man for me. I honestly thought Daniel was bluffing like always, pulling one last pathetic stunt to emotionally blackmail me into coming back, but this time, life hit him harder than any of us expected, because when he actually slipped from the windowsill, thinking the bushes below would cushion his fall, what he didn't know was that the landscaping company had removed the soft hedges that very morning for replacement, leaving behind nothing but exposed concrete and a shallow iron pipe sticking out just enough to twist fate. And by the time I turned around at the sound of the thud and the gasps of people on the street, Daniel Carter, my ex-husband and the man who once swore to protect me and our daughter, lay crumpled and motionless on the pavement below, with a pool of blood forming beneath his back and a crowd of onlookers gathering in panic. And I remember standing there frozen for a second, not out of fear but out of the surreal, twisted symmetry of it all. Wanted to use guilt to trap me forever. And instead, karma came early and did the job better than I ever could, because Daniel didn't die, no. Death would have been merciful instead. He survived with multiple spinal fractures, a shattered pelvis, and a confirmed diagnosis of complete lower body paralysis. And when the paramedics rushed him to the hospital, and I followed from a distance just to make sure Emma didn't suddenly lose her father overnight, I saw with my own eyes how the man who once looked down on me now couldn't even sit up without assistance. And when the doctors told him he'd never walk again, never regain control of his lower limbs, and would need lifelong care, Linda and Jason, those two vultures, didn't even blink before disappearing from the hospital without paying the deposit or signing any responsibility forms, leaving Daniel, once their golden son, and Shield stranded in his hospital bed, helpless and abandoned like a burden no one wanted to carry. And I could have walked away right then. I could have said, "Serves you right," and vanished from his world. But instead, I stood outside the room for a moment, watching him stare at the ceiling with hollow eyes, and I felt nothing, not joy, not sadness, just a quiet confirmation that the universe had finally balanced the scale. And then I turned around, pulled Emma's jacket tighter around her shoulders, and walked away without looking back, because we were finally free. And as for Linda and Jason, oh, don't worry, they got theirs too, because while Daniel was still in recovery, I mailed an anonymous packet to the state family court containing the DNA test that proved Toby, the so-called golden grandson they gave up everything for, wasn't even Jason's biological child, which meant that all the sacrifices, all the favoritism, all the manipulation they weaponized against me and Emma was built on a lie. And when Jason received the results, witnesses said he went completely unhinged, smashing furniture, screaming accusations, and threatening the woman who had quietly given birth to Toby years ago during her fling with some local bartender. And when she confirmed it, he spiraled even deeper, drinking himself into stupors, getting into bar fights, and turning their tiny rented apartment into a war zone. And as expected, Linda couldn't take it anymore, especially once Jason started threatening her too when she refused to buy him more alcohol. So she began sleeping on park benches, begging money from church ladies, and eventually in a rainy morning in the middle of September tried to cross the freeway during rush hour and was hit by an 18-wheeler, her body crushed beyond recognition. And it wasn't even in the news because no one claimed her for days, no family, no next of kin, not even Jason, who who by then was already hospitalized for liver failure and multiple internal injuries after collapsing drunk in a motel room. And when the police finally contacted me as her ex-daughter-in-law, I signed the waiver to release her body to the county for cremation without a funeral, no flowers, no eulogy, not even a headstone, just ashes in an unmarked tin box shelved with hundreds of other forgotten souls. And I didn't feel sorry, I didn't feel cruel, I felt justified, because this was the woman who once told me my daughter wasn't worth educating, who tore up my parents' memorial tablets, who let her son kick my baby girl across a living room floor and called me ungrateful for crying about it. And as for Jason, he didn't last much longer. Either passed away one cold morning after choking on his own vomit in his hospital bed. No visitors, no mourners, no prayers. Just silence, and a nurse quietly covering his face with a sheet while marking his file as unclaimed. And that, my dear reader, was the final curtain on the Carter family, a trio who once thought they owned my life, my home, and my daughter's future, and now they were nothing but distant shadows, echoes of a nightmare I had finally woken up from, because in the aftermath of all that, as I stood in our condo, yes, still legally mine and more beautiful than ever thanks to the help of veterans who came and fixed every broken door, every scratched wall, every shattered window, I watched Emma run through the living room holding a certificate from school, a bright pink ribbon in her hair, and tears sprang to my eyes as she said, "Mommy, I got first place in art class today." And I knelt down, hugged her tight, and whispered, "You deserve every good thing in this world," because she did, because she had survived cruelty, shame, and trauma at such a young age, and still smiled like sunshine after a storm. And as she giggled and asked what was for dinner, I stood up and replied, "Whatever my brave girl wants," because for the first time in years, we were safe, we were happy, we were whole. And I finally understood that real strength wasn't about yelling louder or fighting to tear. It was about standing your ground, protecting what matters, and knowing when to walk away with your head high while the people who tried to break you crumble under the weight of their own rot. And that, more than revenge, was the sweetest victory I could have ever asked for. 3 months after everything ended, the fall, the lawsuits, the deaths, the silence, I found myself standing on the balcony of my condo, watching the sun rise over the city skyline with a coffee in one hand and Emma's tiny fingers lace through mine. And for the first time, in what felt like an eternity, my heart wasn't clenched with fear or rage or grief, but wrapped in something gentle and steady, something like peace. Because we had survived the storm, and though the scars were still, they're emotional ones, hidden beneath smiles and tucked behind our ice, we were healing, day by day, breath by breath. And I could see it in the way Emma danced barefoot across the living room floor while singing songs she made up on the spot, in the way she stopped flinching when a door slammed, in the way she no longer woke up from nightmares crying for me to stay, and most of all, in the way she looked at herself in the mirror with that unshakable little girl pride, saying things like, "I'm smart and I'm strong, and my mommy is the best." And if you had told me a year ago that we would be here, just the two of us, free and laughing and finally unafraid, I might have called you crazy, because back then I was still waking up every morning wondering how to survive the next conversation with my mother-in-law, or how to dodge the latest guilt trip from Daniel, or how to protect Emma from a house that never really felt like home. But now this space was ours, every inch of a tour's in name, in spirit, in energy. From the soft lavender curtains Emma picked out herself to the tiny photo wall where we pinned up her school drawings, her award certificates, and the newly reprinted photos of my parents, framed this time in shatterproof acrylic, because some memories deserve to be honored without fear. And speaking of fear, I had none left, not of men who raised their hands, not of women who thought they owned me, not of lawyers, not of gossip, not even of the past, because I had lived it, burned through it, and come out the other side stronger than I ever thought possible. And maybe that's what trauma really does. If you face it head on, it doesn't just wound. It rebuilds layer by layer, turning soft hearts into iron, and iron into protection for the ones you love. And love, as I learned through this whole ugly chapter, isn't what people say to you when things are easy, it's what you choose to protect when things are hard. And I had chosen Emma, chosen myself, chosen to stop breaking just to make other people comfortable, and I didn't need applause for that. Didn't need validation, but one day, a letter arrived at our door, addressed to Ms. Claire Bennett, and when I opened it, I found an invitation from the Veterans Association, inviting me to speak at a memorial event in honor of fallen soldiers and their families. and beneath that was a handwritten note from General Richard Morgan himself. "You've carried your parents' legacy with grace and strength. Come remind the world what it means to be the daughter of heroes." I cried when I read it, not because I was sad, but because I had spent so many years shrinking myself, trying to not make waves, and now here I was asked to stand in front of a crowd and speak not just as their daughter, but as myself. And when the day came, I stood on a wide stage in front of rows of men and women in uniform, their medals glinting under the soft afternoon sun, and I took a deep breath and said, "My name is Claire Bennett, and I used to think being an orphan meant I had no one, but now I know I come from people who bled for this country, who stood for truth, who believed in fairness and decency, and everything I am today, every step I take forward is because of that blood in my veins." And I looked down at Emma in the front row. Her face lit up like she was watching a superhero, and I knew, no matter how hard this life had been, I'd done one thing right. I'd raised her to know her worth, to know she didn't have to beg for love or shrink for safety. And after the speech, people came up to shake my hand, hug me, thank me, veterans who had served with my father, mothers who had lost sons, girls barely older than Emma who said they wanted to grow up strong like me, and I smiled, not out of pride, but out of something deeper, peace, perhaps, or maybe just the quiet satisfaction of knowing I didn't let them win. Not Daniel, not Linda, not Jason, not even the dark voices in my own head that used to whisper I wasn't enough. And as the months passed, life took on a rhythm again. Emma excelled at school. I started freelancing as a writer, telling stories of women like me who fought back, who stood tall, and one of those stories went viral, shared across platforms by people who said, "This is what resilience looks like." And though I didn't chase fame, the recognition brought with it a kind of validation I never knew I needed. And one afternoon, as I sat sipping tea on the balcony with Emma beside me coloring on the floor, she looked up and asked, "Mommy, are you happy now?" And I looked at her, really looked at her curious eyes and ink-smudged cheeks, and I smiled the most honest smile I'd ever given and said, "Yes, baby. I am," because I was not perfect, not rich, not without regrets, but happy in a way that felt earned, like a sunrise after a long, bitter storm. And maybe that's what healing really is, isn't it? Forgetting what happened, not pretending it didn't hurt, but learning to live fully despite it, and protecting joy like it's sacred. And Emma, my brave, brilliant sunbeam of a daughter, was my joy, my purpose, my reason. And as we curled up that night with a book and a bowl of popcorn, she whispered before falling asleep, "Thank you for never giving up on me, Mommy." And I kissed her head and whispered back, "Thank you for being the reason I never gave up on myself." And as the stars blinked awake outside the window and the world slowed into quiet, I closed my eyes and felt the safest I'd ever felt in my life. Not because I was guarded, but because I was finally free.